Alright guys, so here's our review on the Strike King KVD Sexy Frog. It's a relatively new frog. I think it came out just last year. About the same size. I'm going to be comparing it a lot up against the Spro Bronzeye 65 frog. So pretty cool frog. It's got some cool features in it that some of the other frogs don't have. So let's go and check it out. Alright guys, the Strike King KVD Sexy Frog. Comes in one size for now. We'll see what happens after iCast. Maybe there's another smaller or bigger size coming out. But according to Tackle Warehouse, there's no length or weight or anything like that. And then we go to Strike King's catalog. They don't talk about the length or weight or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a Spro Bronzeye frog. There's a Bronzeye 65 frog. Very reminiscent of that Bronzeye 65 frog as far as the size is concerned. You look at a Copper's Life Target 65T, you can tell the 65T is a bit larger. So we'll take the specs off of the Bronzeye frog and call it a length of 2.5 inches, a weight of 5/8 of an ounce, and a top water hollow body frog. So it's a floating frog. Go ahead and show you guys my measurement here. With the line tie, it's about 2 5/8 inches from the line tie to the collars here on the skirt material. And then the skirt material comes very long, you guys, which is a good thing for those of you guys that like to have it long, but some people like to cut it down. They're a little over 3.5 inches, so it makes the frog a little over 6 inches. This frog I actually went ahead and cut down already. For those of you guys that don't know, most people out there like to have the skirt material about the same length as the frog. So you just kind of bend it down like that, hold it down, and then just trim it like that. And kind of give you guys an idea of how much shorter it is. Also, what that does is when you trim it down like that, as you can already tell here, but it does it in the water really well. It makes the skirt material flare out a lot more than when it's longer like this. So for those of you guys that like it longer, more power to you. In fact, you might get more depression from the weight of the skirt material down inside the heavily matted grass just by the skirt material being longer. But for me, I like it to be just about the same length as the body of the frog. So the frog actually does have some feature to it. It's got the molded on arms, kind of like the Copper's Life Target there. You can see that they both have that molded arm. And then it also has some texture here on the side. And then the eyes are very pronounced upward there. So that really doesn't matter, but just to show you guys. It comes with a Gamakatsu hook. Very sharp, very strong. We're not going to talk about the sharpness of the hook just because hooks are made to be sharp. Skirt material, like we said, it's very long. Comes with about 17 strands. There were 17 strands on both, so it's a little under than what probably around 20 or 22 seems to be about where we would want to be for a nice thick skirt. And then anything around 25 or more seems to be thick and nice and full, and that's just kind of bonus for us as consumers. But anything under 20 seems to be just a little thin, but I guess if you look at this, it's not too terrible. So but when it's in the water, you just want it to flare out nice, so it just gets a little bit more attention, especially when you're in open water. If you're not in open water and you're in that heavily matted vegetation, it's probably not going to make a huge difference. Maybe just a little bit more depression on lighter, heavily matted vegetation, if you get what I'm saying. Let's talk about the durability of the frog. The frog is a thick frog. It's probably not going to be the easiest frog to push down for a bass. I mean, a bass is going to crush a frog no matter what. If they get it in their mouth and you set the hook, if it's a small fish, that's probably the only time you're going to have a hard time getting the hook set. But if a frog gets this thing in their mouth, you're going to get the fish if you set the hook right. But as far as the thickness of the body, it's thick. It's thick like the Spro Bronzeye frog, and it depresses about the same. Probably maybe a little bit easier just because it's not as watertight as the Spro Bronzeye. You squish down the Spro Bronzeye frog, you can hear the air squirting out of there because of the fact that it's pretty airtight. This one, not as much. You can barely hear it, but definitely not as much. Also, it has an air, or not an air, but a water exit hole there. So when you squeeze the frog, that air will come shooting out of there. And this thing does take on water, not any more than average, probably about the same as the copper's frog. So maybe every 2, 3, 4 casts, you're probably going to be squeezing this to get some of the air out. In fact, in my fishing video, you'll probably notice me squeezing the air out before 1 or 2 of the casts that I make out there, which I don't feel like that's a huge deal. I mean, if you're throwing it out there and it's sinking on the way back, that's a big deal. If you're throwing it out there and you're having to squeeze water out of it every other cast, to me that's not that big of a deal because it takes an extra 1 or 2 seconds to do. So that's just my feeling about it. So it does have a rattle, and a really nice one too. It's got a spherical plastic ball inside of here that houses 2 what looks like steel BBs inside of that plastic ball. The plastic ball is about the same diameter as this lead weight here, maybe a little bit wider, and it just bounces around in there and makes enough noise to get some attention. So if you guys like a rattle in your frog, this one seems to have a pretty good one. And I looked at it, and it seems to be a plastic rattle in there. So as far as walking the frog, you guys know that I don't walk a lot of frogs. So, but as far as walking the frog is concerned, cut the legs down if you guys want it to walk a little bit better. You can also tie loop knots. I don't know how much I would rely on a loop knot when you're setting the hook as hard as you do on a frog, but maybe you guys know a really, really strong loop knot. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and stick with my Palomar knot and just keep fishing it in the heavily matted vegetation, which seems to work very, very well on this frog. So I enjoyed fishing with the frog. I like the fact that it comes with the rattle. When they come with the rattle, it seems to be a good thing for me. You can always take the rattle out. It's kind of a pain in the butt to have to go buy rattles. You guys remember the Man's Super Frog review I did, just the one before this review. This one actually comes with the rattle, but they're just 2 like Carolina weight BBs, or like beads that you would put around your neck. And that's a very simple way to accomplish a rattle if you guys want a rattle inside your frog for frogs that don't come with them. So it does have the extra wide gap style hook, where some of them have more of a rounded hook, like the, what was that frog that came with that? The Paycheck Transporter frog comes with a, I think this is an owner hook, but it's a rounded hook. So it's not an extra wide gap, it's not an offset hook. So whether that is going to make a difference in hook sets or anything as far as the rounded hook versus the extra wide gap, I don't know. I seem to get the frogs as good as any other of the other frogs that are out there. So they all, like some people say, you pretty much got a 50-50 shot of getting the fish with a hollow body frog, and that seems to be the case with any of the frogs, whether it's got a extra wide gap style hook or a strength shank round bend style hook. It doesn't seem to really matter. What was the other thing I was going to talk about here? As far as the hooks are concerned, it doesn't really seem to take on a whole lot of vegetation when you're fishing it through the thick brush. One of the hooks seems to be lifted up off just barely, and that could be just one of the frogs. You see that hook right there? It's lifted off just a little bit. This one's coming up just a little bit, but it's shielded by the fact that it's kind of behind the frog there. But the hook there on the left, it's lifted up a little bit. So it does pick up a little bit of vegetation, but definitely not as badly as the Jackal IOB frog. So pretty good little frog here. And one thing I really like about these frogs are the colors. Now, the colors probably aren't going to make a huge difference, especially when you're fishing them in the heavily matted vegetation. Just kind of be in the ballpark of whatever color you want to be. So, I mean, I guess it's really not going to matter, but I really do like the colors. I mean, I think that they're pretty cool. So, the colors, this one here is called Stump Jumper 157. And Stump Jumper was the one that I mainly used. It's got a black back, kind of like a perch design on the side, and a chartreuse belly, and then a 3 different color skirt with some green, yellow, and brown intermixed there. So there is Stump Jumper. And this other color we have here is called Candy Frog. Let's make sure that's what that's called. Tackle Warehouse, yep, Candy Frog. Tackle Warehouse says it's Candy Frog, and this has got a silver belly and then just a whole bunch of different colors, like the whole rainbow on the back of it with the different glitter flake that's in it. And it's pretty much a transparent frog with the glitter is so heavy in there that you really can't see through it at all. So, and this has got a two-tone color skirt with the chartreuse and kind of like a pearl white. So that is Candy Frog. Alright guys, so there's a review of the KVD frog, the sexy frog. If you guys like the review, please hit the like button down over here in the lower left corner. If you guys have any questions or if there's anything I missed, please leave a comment below or send me a personal message and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you guys need me to compare it up against anything else, see what my thoughts are versus another frog, just let me know and I'll give you my 2 cents about it. And if you guys have any success or horror stories with the frog, list them down below so we can learn from your guys' experiences and tell people whether they want to buy the frog, help people out. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll try to get another review out. I think I'm going to do this review maybe tonight. This is the Bose Sumo frog, and talk to you about my experience with the Bose Sumo frog out on the water. So stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot, guys.